Hey folks, in this video newsletter, which is also available in a briefer blog post if you would like to read instead of watch, or listen for that matter, I wanted to talk a little bit about when things feel like they are just not going to get better. I have received so much news from friends and from clients in the past couple of weeks that where people are just feeling really almost like held back by the world, the universe, reality, what have you, and that like they just cannot seem to move forward. It's like a 2 steps forward, 3 steps back sort of feeling with a lot of people right now. And I wanted to share some of the tools that I've been using to help myself get through what I've been calling like the crux of awfulness that peaked in 2020 for me. So I guess I'll share a little bit of background information so that you're not like wondering what the heck I'm talking about with certain things, right? So if you're already a subscriber and you've already heard this from me, I will try to be as brief as possible. But if you're new here, I, like many people who are, of a certain age, end up not being married anymore. I chose to leave my relationship, my marriage of 10 years, relationship of way longer than that. And it was by far the scariest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. Like it was it's me or the relationship sort of situation. And thank God I chose me. But nonetheless, it was a very scary thing that I had to do. And granted, like I still, like I have a lot of love and respect for my former spouse. It was just no longer working for either one of us. And separating from something, from a situation that you thought was going to be forever and turns out is not forever is very challenging indeed. So I've been through the ringer with insomnia, panic attacks, which I've realized I've been coping with my entire life. So it seems appropriate now that I seem to be coming out of the other side of all of this, that I share some tools and resources with folks who are going through similar situations being very hard things right now. First of all, I want everybody to remember that nothing in life is static. Like the seasons, there is no eternal winter. Spring eventually comes. Summer eventually comes. Fall follows, and then winter arrives again, only to have spring come and melt the winter snow. So if we bear in mind that everything has a season, then it will provide a little bit of cold comfort when we need it. And we also, I'm a big lover of the ocean. The ocean is not always a raging storm. It is not always a maelstrom that is pulling you under and attempting to drown you. The calm seas will come again. This is just a storm that will pass. So while you're weathering the storm and trying to shelter yourself through this winter, please treat yourself and have compassion for yourself. This is a really difficult practice for a lot of people, and a lot of people who have high expectations of themselves and other people around them, people who are perfectionists, and and it can be a very challenging practice. You can look up Pema Chodron's Maitri, Maitri. It's like a self-compassion practice to help you cultivate a little bit more of that. Just focus on it for yourself. You don't need to do it for other people. Just focus on it for yourself, especially if you're someone who's hard on yourself and you have a lot high expectations and you feel like you should be one place and you're not. And what is that? And then you start making up all these stories about what this means about who you are and your value in the greater world and your worth as a person. And oh my gosh, like, just have some self-compassion. You know, you are where you are because of all that you've been through, and you cannot be anywhere else right now. Things could not have gone differently than they did because this is how things happened. And I remember my mother essentially saying this to me when I was a kid, and I thought it was the cruelest thing that she could ever say. And I'd be like, that's so unfair. But it's, my mother will be very proud to hear that I just repeated something that she said to me as a kid. So just remember, you know, everything is okay. You are who you are, and you're worthy as you are. And you can love yourself as you are, and practicing Maitri may help. A little side tangent, because you know I love my little side stories. My glasses that I wish I could wear, but I can't because they reflect the light too much. The company that I got them from, you can have them inscribed on the temple, a word, or like up to however many letters it was. I don't remember now. And at the time I couldn't think of anything. And I just said, well, I'm gonna have Maitri written on, like inscribed in my glasses. And it's also inscribed in my glasses case. So instead of my name, it is Self-Compassion. And I didn't think about this until one of the many people on my Keep Pam from Falling Apart team said that I should practically like write like Self-Compassion or Maitri like on like my hand to like look at every day. I mean, they didn't actually say to write it on my hand, but they said I should put it somewhere where I would be reminded of it every day. And then I remembered that I have it on my glasses, so it's like up against my brain all day, and I just forgot that it's there. So yeah, so even if you have to like hang it up in front of you to remind yourself to step back and have some self-compassion, do that. With that said, part of having self-compassion is resting when you need to rest, not pushing through your exhaustion. It's not saying, I have to do all these things, or I should be doing all these things and I don't want to do them. Having self-compassion is eating food that's good for you. It's not, this is like so that future you will be able to live a longer, healthier life. So this is like future-oriented self-compassion versus reaching towards foods that may be comforting but are ultimately really bad for you. I guess, for example, with me, I really, when I get stressed out, I want to eat all the carbs and sweets that are in the house. So I basically don't keep them in the house. Not because if I get stressed out, they start calling my name. So I'm like, so I end up having to make healthy food for myself to take care of myself. And if I want the ice cream, I have to go to the ice cream shop to get the ice cream. So it's like I said, it's not like an eating like issue thing for me. It's just that like, it's because I know that like if I eat that way, I won't feel well the next day. I won't feel better about myself. So, but eating healthy for me makes I feel better about myself. Like my body feels better. I sleep better. I have more energy. You know, all the things that you need to feel alive and really engaged in living with the world. I need to, like, I know the food that I need to eat in order to feel that way. And whatever that is for you, figure that out and give that to yourself. Next up, we have to move our bodies. We as humans are not meant to be static. We are part of nature. Nature is always moving and changing. And if we want things to change in our lives, we need to get moving in some way. And I'm not talking about like going to the gym and slaving away, like exercising like till you want to, drop on the floor in a puddle of perspiration. I mean more like moving your body in a way that you love. I have discovered I love going to the track every day. I don't run. I just walk around the track. And what I love about going to the track, to walk on the track, in addition to the fact that it's like a more comfortable surface to walk on, is all the other people that are at the track that I get to watch, and I get to see kids play soccer, and I get to see, adults doing different physical activities that I have zero interest in doing, but I like watching. I get to see people playing tennis and doing yoga and and walking their dogs, and it's just really nice for me. I really enjoy getting out there and feeling part of a community while also taking care of my body. So I will go out every day, weather and physical health permitting, and walk for 30 minutes a day at a minimum. I'll set the timer for 30 minutes. And then once that 30 minutes timer goes off, I have the option to keep walking if I want, or I just go home. So for me, getting out and doing that every day has been instrumental in helping me feel good about how I'm taking care of myself. I will also make time to do something that I love doing. So for me, that's practicing violin. And with everything that's gone on, some days I don't feel like practicing now. And whereas before it was like I had to practice in order to feel connected to myself. And so now if I'm just feeling like I'd rather sit on the couch and do a whole lot of nothing, I've made an agreement with myself that for a minimum of 5 times a week, I'm going to practice 20 minutes of violin. And then if I want to do an additional 20 minutes, and those extra 2 days I can, but I do minimum of 20 minutes a day, and 20 minutes most often turns into an hour and a half or more. But I start with a 20-minute block of time, set the violin down, and then I go do other things, and then the violin will be calling me back, and then I'll be going back and practicing again for another 20 minutes. I only do 20 minutes at a time because it's better for my body. Prefers it, so I have time to stretch out and move, and I can refresh my brain, and so that's what I do for something that I love. And like I said, I've made a commitment to do that frequently. I also really love taking salt baths, like Dead Sea salt and Epsom salt baths. So I take a salt bath at least once a week and just soak in it. I'll get in the tub and on my iPad, and I'll put a movie on, and I have a dimmer switch on the main light in my bathroom, so I turn the light down really low, and I'll get some sparkling water, or I'll make some tea, and sometimes I'll have a snack while I'm in the bathtub, and it's just a really lovely time for me to be taking time to do that when I feel well, because sometimes I'll only take a bath if I don't feel well. So this is me taking care of myself in a way, in a positive way, when I feel well. Another practice that I've been doing to help me move through this challenging time, which might be the most impactful practice, is that thanks to my insomniac, like extreme insomnia episode, I learned more about my own. I've been able to really look at how I think about things and really confront that. And I mean, and this started well before the Insomniac episode, but it wasn't until the Insomniac episode like really reached its peak that I was like, oh my gosh, I am beating myself up about so many things. I have all these what are called intrusive thoughts, where you just kind of get on the thought train and you go to these like not great places. And you think as a meditator of 5+ years, it would be something that I don't engage in anymore, but that's the thing, we're human. And I can meditate and not engage in these things on the meditation cushion. It's just the practice in daily life thing. That's the catch, right? So I've been catching these thoughts and saying, is this thought true? This seems like this is a recurring or otherwise called intrusive thought. Is this thought true? And oftentimes the thought says, yes, of course it's true, blah, 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 blah. And you must listen to me because I'm a thought and I'm in your brain and I'm telling you what's real. And you say, no, this thought's a lie. This thought, you are a lie. And you are a lie because, and then you list evidence to the contrary, proving the thought wrong. And it's not, and you don't, and I'm not engaging in an argument with myself over things. It's just saying, no, this is what I know is true. And yes, some of what the thought is saying may be true, but not all of it. And this is what I know to be true. And then I go through a list and a practice to rewire my brain, because having these recurring thoughts, in Chinese medicine is called worry, or oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name. Just like thoughts that you're turning over and over and over and over and over again. I can't remember. If I remember, I'll put it in the blog post. So if you're someone who tends to churn the same material over and over and over again, it's not it becomes unhelpful, and you actually like ruin your digestive system by doing this, because your brain needs all this energy to be solving these problems, and it messes up your digestive system, which is why you start craving sugar or whatever food it is that like does the happy thing in your brain. It could not be food, it could be a substance, it could be a drug, it could be anything, it could be sex or gambling, so anything to soothe whatever it is that soothes your brain from feeling these things, that's what you're going to reach for, and then it like messes you up. So if you're someone who kind of like churns over material in your brain in a non-helpful way, then challenging the thought and saying, no, this is not true, and here's the evidence why it's not true, then you can then sit with what the thought is trying to protect you from, because the thought is actually there to keep you from feeling something, because the thought sees this feeling as a threat to your survival. And if you are no longer thinking those thoughts, then you have to deal with the thing that's threatening your survival. And that thing that's threatening your survival is being human, feeling like, knowing that things are not certain, knowing that the world is inherently the way that it is and things are always changing, that I feel insecure in myself, I feel shame or guilt or inadequate about things, or what I always say is, it's never going to be good enough. And it's something that the more you challenge these thoughts, the less power they hold over your moods and emotions and how your day goes. And I can say this knowing that this is true for me, because for the first 8 months that I was separated from my husband, anytime I hit some kind of obstacle or had a thought come into my head that got me anxious or panicked, usually about money, it was usually about money, because I have a lot of fear around not having enough money to take care of myself. And so I'd have a fear, like a thought that I couldn't do this without my spouse, and that I had made a huge mistake asking for the separation, and oh my gosh, it would turn into like melodrama central in my brain, and I would just completely exhaust myself, and it would be a nightmare. And I started this intrusive thought practice by then saying, wait, that's not true. We did not make a huge mistake in doing this. Here's why. And, here's why, because, financially you're doing well. You're saving money every month. You're paying all your bills. You have enough money to be still taking your violin lessons. You can eat the food that you need to eat in order to feel well, that you enjoy eating. I remind myself about all my physical stuff that I've been coping with for a really long time that's improved. Like the headaches that I was getting regularly have significantly reduced, which means like in all the years that they've significantly reduced, they've significantly reduced even more. And now when I do get a headache, it's not something that leaves me bedridden for 2 days. My, women's issues, my cramps and other like period horribleness have been getting a lot better. And I can just feel how I'm feeling, and if I need to rest, I can just rest. And if I want to go out for a 2-hour walk, I can go out for a 2-hour walk. I remind myself that I am in the home that I've been in for 11 going on 12 years, and that I'm doing it by myself. So clearly this was not the biggest mistake of my life, because I'm doing better than I have ever done. I'm learning violin music that I dreamed of learning, and by the way, it's way harder than I ever expected it to be, but that's a story for another time. And by challenge and also feeling like I'm not supported. That was the other thing, is that like, the money fears is really just feeling insecure, right? And I have to remind myself in how many ways I'm supported. I have a regular job that so far is stable, and it pays my bill, helps me pay my bills, and I like the people that I work with. I have a large support network of family and friends who are cheering me on, and those who have not been able to cheer me on with my choice, they're not really in my life anymore, and I'm okay with that. And I just remind myself of all these things to help me remember that the thought is not real. That no, it was not the biggest mistake that I've ever made. By making the hardest decision I've had to make was not the biggest mistake of my life when things get hard, or when I'm met with a challenge or an obstacle, because I'm no longer nauseous with a churning stomach all day long anymore. So if you can challenge your intrusive thoughts in whatever way they look like for you, and remind yourself of the things that have moved in a different direction, even if it's the direction that you don't want them to be moving in. Find something to remind yourself that the thoughts are not true. And I'm in my early 40s, and I don't own my home. I live in New York City, one of the most expensive places to live in the world, although that, everywhere is expensive these days, but I don't need to own my own home because it's cheaper for me to be renting my place than it would be to own it. So for me, financially, it's the smarter choice to not own a home right now. And yeah, it's different. My life looks completely different than what I thought it would look like, but what's new about that? When we were kids, we thought we would be, I don't know. I thought I would become an actuary when I was a kid. And now I'm an herbalist, but I work in the financial industry during the day. So I guess I'm doing a little bit of what I thought I would do as a kid. And so just remind yourself of that where you're at right now is just fine, and tell those intrusive thoughts to leave you alone, and tell them to leave you alone by proving that they're not true. Second to lastly, start writing lists of things that you want to do in your life. And these are not things that you're going to go out and do tomorrow or even next week, or maybe not even next year or 5 years from now. Just things that I would like to do this. On my list, for example, I really want to buck up the courage to go on a day hike by myself. I know it might sound like bonkers to you, seeing as I live in a city and I'll walk around all day by myself in the city, but I'm afraid to go for a hike in the woods at a state park by myself. So I've never gone, and that's on my list for something that I want to do. I also really want to go to Greece. I want to go to Australia. I have no idea when I'll be able to get to go there, but I'm going to put them on the list anyway, because, if I write it down, maybe, I'll find a way to get there. I wanted to be someone who, I don't know, showed up for their friends better, because when I was married, I wasn't really able to do that, and now I'm really making an effort for that. So that's gone on my list. So it's not all about, going places or spending money. And I also want to be someone who took really good care of herself in a way that felt good to me. Not in a I should do this way, but in a I want to do this for myself way. So I have a lot of different things written on my list, and some of them are very silly and some of them are very serious. So, and if you're stuck on how to start, you could start with something like, I want to go on a day hike in the woods by myself, or I want to go to a movie by myself when the movie theaters reopen, or whatever, something. You don't have to do it. That's the thing. You just write it down. You don't even have to do it. And the biggest thing I think that's been helping me lately, which I've resisted for years, is to start gratitude lists. I didn't do a list. I did a jar. And I have little strips of paper. I'm regretting that I don't have it over here to show you. It's like a giant flower vase. And I have these little strips of paper cut in 1 by 4 centimeter, I think, strips, and I write the date and the thing that I'm grateful for, and then I fold it up in half, and then in half again, and I stick it in the jar. And I just sit down and I do that every day for however many slips I feel grateful for. Some days it's 1 slip, and some days it's 8 slips of paper. And my purpose for putting it in a jar, instead of just writing it in a notebook, is that then what I can do is I can pull a handful of them out when I'm having a rough time. When I'm feeling like things are just not working out in my favor, and nothing's going my way, so on and so forth, I can just pull out a handful, I can open those slips, and I can read them and get brought back to the moment where I felt that gratitude. So I can rekindle the flame, so that I can have more positive self-regard for myself and my situation. And I've got to say, the first long time that I started doing this, it felt like such a hokey, fake, insincere practice, because it was something I was not used to doing. I was used to just focusing on all the things that were not going well. So this is a like things that are going well that make me happy, collection basically. And a friend of mine had told me that she and her son did this years ago. And I always thought that was such a great idea. I cut up all these pieces of paper, got a jar, all the things, and then I never did it. So I'm so happy that I'm actually like doing this practice now after all this time. And it's really wonderful. And now I'll even like walk down the street. I love spring with all the spring flowers. And I'll see, like, I saw some wood sorrel, like, I don't know, wildly growing out of a planter on my way to my dental appointment today. And I was like, oh, wood sorrel, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much for being here. And I passed by some violets and I did the same thing. And it makes me feel better. I feel happier and more joyful and less like everything in the world is against me or working against me, or I'm fighting against everything. I just feel like I'm fighting less by acknowledging the things that I'm happy about, that I'm grateful for, that bring me joy, that help me feel contented and at peace. And, I think that might be the biggest thing to have made a difference for me. More so than challenging the intrusive thoughts, more so than eating well, more so than moving my body. But as we all know, we're all a giant puzzle, and it's just about finding the things that work for you to help you feel and move through the world at your best. So, for me, I need to be doing all these different things to feel at my best. And I'm also doing, homeopathic remedies and herbal remedies, and I'm doing my bitters, and, I'm doing all the things because I need to do all the things in order to feel good every day. And that's really what this work is about. What are the things that help me, feel good? And I'm feeling good. And maybe one day I'll actually put on makeup for one of these things. But I don't need makeup to feel good. So, so Marty has been very moved by this video newsletter, as you can tell. And I appreciate you watching. If you've watched to the end, thank you very much. And a little side note, this peace lily here, I found it on the street last week, and it looked like it was at death's door. I felt so bad for this thing when I saw it. It was like it had not been watered in I don't know how long, a long time. And I just said, I'm going to rescue that plant and bring it home. And I like basically left it sitting in like water for 2 days. And look at it, it's so happy. Very excited to have a new plant friend. I think it's happy being here too. And Saul's down here on my right. He's snoring, but I have a cat that snores. And so welcome to the Shaw Goodbye, where I say goodbye 3 times before I actually leave. And it's just because I love you guys so much that I don't want to go. And if you have any questions, or if there are practices that you do that help you move through the hard times and remember that there is light at the end of the tunnel, send them my way, and I'll update this the written blog post, of course, with what you have to share. Or you could just comment with what you do, because comments are open on the blog post always. So I would love to hear from you what you're doing when things feel like they're just stacked up against you, and what you do. I'd love to hear all about that as a fellow lifelong deep learner. And I hope that you are well and continue to be well and take care of yourself. And if you're not feeling well, I wish you well. Okay, bye.